Hi, we're here in Mayfair with Jamie Constable from R Capital. We are going to be having a little chat to him about what it is exactly that they do and what you can do to make sure that he's not swooping in on your business one day. Tell us exactly what I mean by that.
Well, R Capital specialises in businesses that get themselves into financial distress.
Right.
And we turn those businesses around. So, yeah, hopefully your users will not be seeing us on a regular basis, but if I can give them any advice of the things that can avoid them come to see us, or the thought of come to see us, then so much the better.
Excellent. So how many brands, we see some of the quite well-known logos here, how many brands are you sort of partnered with, or do you?
We currently own 14 different businesses. Right. Over the years we've owned lots of businesses that we've bought and sold, but currently in the portfolio are 14.
Right.
And they're a real mixture. They all do very different things. We're totally agnostic to the businesses we buy. What's important to us that the business is good at what it does and has a reasonably strong brand, because they're two things that are very difficult for us to fix. But most of the other problems that businesses encounter, we can fix.
Okay. So what are some of the main problems that?
Well, what we're seeing a lot of at the moment in this, especially in this market, turnover's dropped off quite significantly. And the problem you have is that turnover is very variable, but your costs in a business are predominantly fixed. And therefore your turnover might drop off quite quickly, but your cost base remains the same. And suddenly you're in a loss period. And it takes a business a long time to get itself back to a break-even of profitability, because it's got to cut those costs, which it can't cut overnight. So we're seeing a lot of businesses which are good businesses, and they've sort of readjusted themselves with their new turnover levels. But to get there, they've got very large bank debts. They've got large debts to the inland revenue, with VAT and PAYE payments that perhaps they haven't made for a period of time with the time to pay arrangements. And now they're finding it that they're starting to grow slightly, and when you grow you need more cash. So when you go to the bank and your balance sheet looks like that, the bank's saying, well, we can't lend you any more, and the VAT and the PAYE saying, well, no more time to pay, we'd like our money back. And fundamentally there's nothing wrong with the business, but it needs some working capital. So we're looking at a lot of businesses at the moment that are like that. They've got a good product, good brand, it's a good business, but they just haven't got the cash to enable them to get through this period.
Sure. Little Chef is one of the most recognisable brands on the board here. Can you tell us a little bit about what actually happened?
Well, Little Chef was quite a classic, very sad story. It was a phenomenal brand, from the 50s really all the way up to the early 90s. And at its peak it had something like 450 restaurants on the roadside. Right. And as you say, everybody knows the brand. I mean, our brand awareness is something like 98%.
Right.
But in the early 90s, I forget the owner that bought it then, but they saw it as an opportunity to stick hotels on the sites, which is how Travelodge has evolved. And really Little Chef was no longer looked after or wanted particularly, as they focused on their new expansion.
Sure.
And then we went through the whole sort of period of time when everyone was doing sale and leasebacks and financial transactions, and Little Chef was very fortunate in that it sat on freehold land. So the sale and leaseback providers came in and were doing sale and leasebacks, and the financiers were all making hay, but no one was actually looking after the business, and the business was sort of left in a time warp, to be honest. And it went through lots of different owners. It was a bit like parcel. What we liked about the business by the time we got involved was that the sites that it had were really greenfield sites where you can't build restaurants on these sites anymore. And we found that attractive, but we also are aware that the brand had really been left for the last 20 years, and there was a lot of work needed there. By the time we got there, the rents were all far too high, and we had to renegotiate with all the landlords then. The staff morale was very much on the floor, and the offering was really poor. So a lot to do to turn that round. But fundamentally, we knew we had some value in lots of the sites. We put in some quality operators that worked on the easy wins, making sure we got the staff morale back, giving them ownership of their restaurant, so they felt that it was theirs, getting quality food back in. But the big cost was really going to be refurbishing the units. Right. And what we didn't know was how strong or not the brand still was, and whether people had just really written the brand off, or whether they would return if the quality was there. And we were very fortunate to enlist the services of Heston Blumenthal, who carried out a makeover with a TV program, and we were really amazed at the public's response to the new brand, or the sort of Heston-esque type Little Chef. And we've been told along by numerous advisors that everyone is now time poor. You've got to do grab and go. That's it. But it made us realise that if you actually offer the quality, people will stop. They will spend the time, because there aren't that many places you can go and sit down with the kids, whoever, and have quality food, knowing that it's not full of every there is in the world, and that it's good, sensible, wholesome food.
And when you're on a family trip somewhere for miles and miles, it's good to get out of the car for a little break.
Absolutely, yeah. But you want to go somewhere where it's nice and you can relax.
Yeah.
As opposed to feeling that you're in a service station where you're standing there, there's nowhere to sit down, you've got to go and eat in the car.
Yeah.
And really there aren't many places you can do that. And I think that's one of our sort of USPs and something we've been working on.
Mm-hmm. What's your business background? How did you get to where you are?
I trained as an accountant at Touche Ross. I ended up at Touche Ross, and then left in '89. I had no intention of staying on to be an accountant. Always wanted to have my own business. My father always had his own business, and it just seemed something I'd always wanted to do. And then I got, just as I left, one of the partners that I'd been with at Touche Ross had left just before me and asked me if I could join him for a few days a week, helping him out on what was a very sensible day rate at the time. And we were doing turnarounds, and this was '89 we started, and that was really the last recession, which a lot of people nowadays won't remember, but it was carnage then. Interest rates went up to 16%, businesses were falling over all over the place, and the banks were nowhere near as sophisticated in their ability to help businesses than they are today. So we had an amazingly busy time in that period, thoroughly enjoyed it, learned a huge amount, and still use that skill set today that I learned in those early days.
Mm-hmm. What sets your business apart in the business of making
business
turnarounds?
Of turnaround?
Yeah.
There's there are lots of people in our market. We're structured slightly differently in that we predominantly use our own cash to go in and turn the businesses around. So one of our USPs is that the speed of movement is quite key. So we might have an opportunity comes in on a Monday, and it's got to be done by the Friday because they have to pay the wages on the Friday. And there's not many firms out there that will be able to move in that short period of time, but because we have the cash available, because we make our own decisions, we can do that. Once we're in the business, we're very much focused on running the business in a professional, efficient way. We always need to work with the people in the business that understand what the business does. So, we have some businesses that are very specialised in what they do. And we wouldn't pretend to try and do that, but we can do everything else for them. So we can say, look, guys, we're going to make sure your business runs really efficiently, so you can go out and do what you're great at, which is working with your clients and delivering the service, which you're obviously very good at. But everything else we can deal with. And that's often the problem we see in these businesses, that the person who was fantastic at what he did, whether he was an engineer, an architect or whatever, he builds his business up. But as the business gets bigger and bigger, he morphs into the MD, and he's not actually doing what he was good at, and now has become an MD. And sometimes these guys aren't natural MDs, and they're not particularly good at that. So we'll go back in and say, look, you go back and do what you're great at. Go see all your clients, tell them what great work we're doing and what you can do, and we'll look after the other side of the business. So we do get very involved from that point of view. And we always like to be very aligned with the team that we're working with and the people that we've got involved in.